we're going to start looking at the quilting. Right, I'm going to apologise in advance. It's a really warm day here, so I've got my window open, which means you've got a little bit of traffic noise in the background. So I'll try and speak slowly and clearly so you can hear what I'm saying. We're going to start with the quilting. Now, quilting is optional. If you choose not to do the quilting, that's fine. Interface your fabrics, cut them using the pattern pieces, likewise your foam. Just lay your fabric, your exterior fabric, onto your foam and sew baste around the outside at 1/8 of an inch. You don't need to make your foam bigger, you don't need to make your fabric bigger if you're not quilting. If you decide to quilt, you need to cut your fabric and your foam, which I've got on the back there, bigger than the pattern piece. So you can see it's approximately ½ an inch larger all the way around, just a bit more. It's a rough thing. I haven't cut it out accurately. I've just cut bits. The fabric, which is my exterior fabric, is interfaced with the woven fusible interfacing. Now these will be my front flaps. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to make my stitch length a little larger, so it's just under 4, which is perhaps a little less than I would use for top stitching. And all I'm going to do is from the top of, these are the front flap pieces, so the top to the bottom, I'm just going to do a wiggly line. Now if you wanted to use a little bit of spray adhesive, you can do. If you want to pin your fabric to your foam, if that's how you feel most comfortable, then do so. I tend to just lay it on and go for it, so that's exactly what I'm going to do. And I'm going to stitch all the way from one end to the other, using a kind of wiggly windy, not very technical. If you want to do something fancy, that's fine. Now I like to turn it round, and I do my lines, start from one end, and then I'll turn it round and work from the other end. I find that if I do it all from one end, the whole piece of fabric on the top tends to move around, and it just looks a bit puckered. Make sure you keep your fabric nice and taut, nice and tight on the foam. And because this is we're only randomly doing this, it's not a particular design, you can kind of meander off. I'm ready to backstitch at the beginning and the end because we're going to be cutting off the outside anyway. So, and my lines are an inch and a half apart, so not it's not measured. There's no measuring going on here. It's just stitched. I think I can probably fit one more line on there. I'm going to do both of the front flaps to show you, but the same technique will apply to both of the side panels and the gusset panel. So there you go, we can see there that that's all quilted, and actually you can see from the back easier that it's they're just kind of meandering lines. So let's do this one. Let's get that sort of more or less centrally on the If you've got a walking foot, you can use a walking foot for this. I don't use a walking foot very often, basically because my walking foot is massive. It's like driving with a tank, and I can't see what I'm doing. It's clackety clackety clack. Sounds like castanets or flamenco dancing. And I just find it really cumbersome and just not easy to use. So I'm much easier just using my normal foot. Actually, I've got a Teflon foot on here, which slides over the fabric really easily, stops too much of any sort of puckering. although because this has been interfaced, you find it's less likely to pucker. Make sure you keep it nice and taut. So that's 3 lines. Let's do another one. So we have 4 lines on the first one. We'll do 4 lines on this one. It's not really that important. So there we have the second one. So I've now got my 2 front flap panels, shall we call them. And I'm going to take my pattern piece and lay it on, and I'm just going to pop. I usually do this on my cutting table, so I'm doing it here so you can see. I usually use pattern weights rather than pins, but I'm going to pin it just because my pattern weights are elsewhere. And normally I would use a rotary cutter to do the straight edges, but because I'm here, I don't have my cutting mat, and I just want to show you that what we're going to do is cut twice, but we're going to cut one using the pattern piece right side up, and one using the pattern piece right side down, so that what we end up with is 2 pieces that are a mirror image of each other. And the same will apply to your side panels. You want 2 panels that are actually a mirror image of each other. So I usually use a rotary cutter. I'm not actually very clever with scissors because I'm not used to using them very much. So that's one front flap. And I'm going to turn my pattern piece over, and I'm going to cut this one with the pattern piece right sides down, so that I get a mirror image. It's really easy to get confused by this and find yourself doing them the same way, which means your flaps or your doors or whatever you want to call them won't work. They need to be the opposite of each other, so mirror images. So if you're going to do the quilting, and you don't have to quilt all the panels if you don't want to, you can quilt some or just a couple or none. It's really very much up to you. But the panels that you need to do this to, if you're going to quilt, are the 2 front flaps, the 2 side panels, and the gusset panel. There's no pattern piece for the gusset. 22 by 5, I think that is, off the top of my head. Now, if you feel really brave and you're really bold, when you do your gusset, and I've just literally got a piece of foam with my gusset fabric on it, if you really want to, you can lay your lining right side up on the other side, so that the lining and the exterior fabric are actually wrong sides together, and you can quilt through both of them if you want to. You don't have to. It helps to hold the inside, the gusset lining in place, but it's an option if you want to. So I'm going to carry on and quilt the rest of my panels, and I will come back to you and show you the pockets. Now, what I will say before we go any further is that I've made the videos are being made with several different versions of this bag because I've done bits and pieces on different fabrics. So don't worry that if you think, where's that fabric gone, she's using something completely different for the pockets. That's fine. The pockets, it doesn't matter what fabric you make them in, it just will be in a slightly different fabric. So I'm going to quilt the rest of my panels and then show you the pockets, how to construct the pockets.